Good to see at least a few people staying here on Thursday afternoon. What I'd like to do is just start out with some general objectives, educational objectives for the EBIPM program, and there are 3 of them. And the first one is going to be the focal point for today's presentation, but it's to develop and deliver curricula for several audiences: land managers, university students, and a new one that's been added and actually completed is for high school students. So I'll talk about each one of these. But then other objectives include provide ongoing consultation to land managers using EBIPM decision support tools. So here are here's this new philosophy, here's this new approach. These individuals are trying it out. Can we then provide support for them as they do that and have questions? And then the other one is to provide education for policymakers, scientists, and the general public. So again, another set of audiences here. And we're doing that today by having this symposium. About 35 refereed articles have been published on the EBIPM work that's been done so far. And so we're starting to get this out. And as you'll see, I'll highlight the website, which is accessible by the general public. But I'm supposed to talk about Learn by Doing, the curriculum. So I want to just get across a few points about Learn by Doing. Some of them you probably recognize, but invasive plant management is a really complex undertaking when you think about everything that's involved here in terms of issues, in terms of theories, facts, dimensions, perception, and we could go on and on about this. Okay? And current and future decision makers, we're hoping that they're lifelong learners, and they need to then reframe their mental representation, in this case of invasion and of restoration, to fit new knowledge and experiences that come along. How do we get them to shift then from thinking traditionally to thinking about these new ecologically based approaches to invasive plant management? And then, of course, individuals should be actively involved in the learning process. That's a must for it to really stick with them. And then a couple of more principles here is the learning environment should support and challenge the learner in becoming a more effective thinker. Let's nudge this person along, but as we do this nudging, let's provide some scaffolding for them so they don't feel like they're lost. And then what's the role of the instructor in this Learn by Doing curriculum? And it's to introduce the content, but also to serve as a facilitator to help these learners arrive at their own understanding of this new content that they're getting, and to be able to do this in a realistic setting. So we're not just supposed authorities here, we're also helping guide them through this and serving as a sounding board. And then lastly, learners with different skills, backgrounds, and perspectives should collaborate then in tasks and discussions to construct an understanding together that they wouldn't be able to do alone. And I'll talk about this in terms of field schools. When you bring this wealth of experience together, what kind of synergy can you get out of having these folks work together? Okay, so that's kind of a setup for Learn by Doing. Let's talk about the problem. And so I'm indicating here that managing vegetation is a pretty complex endeavor. And so we've got vegetation structure here. We could put composition in that box in the middle too. So here are the factors, here are the mechanisms, the processes that are influencing this. And they're interacting simultaneously. And we could probably put about 1,000 more arrows on this if we wanted to. Okay. So the question becomes then, you're delivering, you're doing education outreach for a variety of audiences. They have different educational backgrounds and different experiences. How do you make it understandable to them? And so one way to do that is with a process-based framework like EBIPM, because it helps them recognize those processes and mechanisms that are interacting simultaneously. But what's neat about this framework is it allows them to kind of visualize and understand the linkages between assessment, between understanding the ecological process and vegetation dynamics in terms of the guiding principles that are out there, and then in terms of the management practices that will be used. It does a very nice job of putting that together. So let's talk about the 3 curricula then. The first one is the land manager curricula. And when we look at trying to get land managers to adopt science-based programs such as EBIPM, and I'm talking about everybody from the 80-year-old rancher to the 22-year-old new BLM employee. Okay? What are we looking at here? What is their understanding of ecological concepts and control methods? Some have little or no ecological understanding. Others have advanced degrees. How do you reach that audience, those audiences? And then what are the perceptions in a program complexity, which we just talked about? But the bottom line for a lot of it is cost. You can have really ecologically sound practices, but if they're too expensive, they're probably not going to be utilized. And then the other one is what kind of planning horizon are we talking about, and do they usually do? EBIPM is a commitment to long-term planning, and they have to be aware of that. And then lastly, the linkages between science and management. How can we have it as a really realistic application of science to management, and not just a trust me, I'm a scientist kind of approach? Okay, what about this curriculum? Right now, the land manager curriculum, there's a prototype of it, and it's a resource handbook that's been developed by EBIPM program scientists, land managers, and outreach educators. And it's only about 3 inches thick here in this binder. This is the curriculum at this point. Okay? And what is it made up of? There are lecture summaries, there are supplemental readings, there are user guidelines, and there are a variety of field activities in there. What I have been charged to do along with my grad student is take this resource handbook and then revise it and reformat it so it can be then posted on the web in a series of modules. So that's what we have ahead of us there. So right now it's based a lot on these guidelines. So here's the introduction to EBIPM. Here are the principles that you've heard about. Here's establishing a weed prevention area that Corey just talked about. Revegetation guidelines. And then lastly, adaptive management, which you heard from Josh about. So this provides kind of the crux of a lot of the manager curriculum at this point. Okay, it's tied really closely to the EBIPM field school. And this is a 3-day field school, and it is rotated from state to state where the demonstration sites for EBIPM are located. So in 2009 it was in Oregon, in 2010 it was in Idaho, in 2011 it was in Utah, and then we're going to have a modified version of it coming up in 2012 in Reno. And so what happens at these field schools is that this framework is introduced in a series of lectures. It's kind of a give and take lecture discussion. As you can see, in this case, it was actually being done in the field. And then after that occurs, then the participants are grouped up into teams, and they have to go out and then use this and further try to understand what's going on with this content. And it works very effectively. And then the last half day of the field school, it's kind of a capstone event where these teams then are presented with a problem, a weed invasion problem, and then they have to show how they've used the framework then to kind of dissect the problem and then arrive at a solution. We also have then field tours, and in this case I'm showing an example of one that was in Jordan Valley this past year. So this is kind of the Reader's Digest condensed version of the field school, where you can get gain an awareness then of EBIPM. And these are happening at all the demonstration sites in the 5 different states. But if you can't make the field school, you can take a virtual field tour. Brenda and Ryan have taken images and videos and constructed or created a narrative of what went on at that field tour, and that's available then for folks to look at. So all of this is posted on the EBIPM website. I'm sure you've seen this and heard about it here, but I'd kind of like to run you through it in terms of the educational aspects. You can get the most current breaking news about EBIPM if you go to this link. The guidebooks are here under Tools for Managers. The high school curriculum is posted here, and the university curriculum that I'll talk about in just a moment is coming soon, as they say. The first 2 modules should be posted. And then you can find out all about the research at the various sites by going to that link. So again, our job right now is to take this manager curriculum, revise it, and then get it posted here. Okay, what are some of the other products? And you've heard about these through the day, but I just again want to highlight them. There are now 8 user guides that are available, and there are 3 DVDs or videos that are available. And again, you can order them from the website, and you can download the PDFs straight from the website. Okay, let's shift gears then to the university curriculum, because this is where we're doing most of our work at this point. And just to kind of set the stage, what we're trying to do then is expose these future natural resource managers and decision makers to the EBIPM framework, but also to the philosophy behind EBIPM. And we're trying to make it available for a variety of courses. So if a weed science course is being taught at the University of Wyoming, an invasion ecology course is being taught at the University of Idaho, a range management course is being taught at Utah State, then this could be incorporated into that curriculum. And it's a modular curriculum. And the idea here is that somebody doesn't have to take the entire package if they don't want to. So each module could be taken, or even a portion of the module could be taken and then incorporated into your existing course structure, if it fits. And what we have, as I'll show you in a minute, is there's a narrative, which is in a PDF format, there's a PowerPoint presentation, and then there's a series of activities that go with each module. And typically we try to have the students in the field, but they might also be doing computer simulations like the ARS weed calculator. And then I've got some fancy language here that just says basically what we're doing is we're using a constructivist approach to helping these students gain new knowledge. And this is how we try to approach it. So what does the curriculum look like? The modules align then with the major steps that you've been hearing about all day in the EBIPM framework, but we're adding a couple of additional topics that we think are very important that aren't quite covered very thoroughly in the existing framework. So the first module is just an introduction. It's completed, ready to be posted on the website. The second one focuses on rangeland health assessment in EBIPM. It's completed and ready to be posted. The third one is understanding the causes of succession, and we're just about ready to complete that and have it posted. And then the next ones are in various stages then of completion, using principles to guide decision making, what tools and strategies are available for managing vegetation, how to use adaptive management in EBIPM. So that looks very familiar compared to that framework. What we've added is human dimensions of EBIPM. So we're going to look at economics and policy. So we're going to tie in with what Kim and Mike Taylor are doing at the University of Nevada, Reno. And then we're also going to have a climate forecasting, seedbed modeling, / plant establishment, / revegetation, a lot of slashes there after what Stuart presented earlier today. So that will be the last module. I'm just going to show you some components then of the module that's been completed. Number 2 here, so this is on assessment. So when you open up this module, you find out up front what the learning objectives are for so the teacher and the student can have an idea then of what they're going to try to do in terms of competencies when this student finishes up. This is just a sample page out of the module, or the narrative. And so what we're trying to do is integrate concise text with some snappy looking text boxes with some images. And they look very much like the guidelines that have already been produced. And this was created in InDesign by my grad student. And then we want to show application in the real world with this. And EBIPM is fairly new, so it's been a little difficult to try and find some case studies. But this is a great one out of Escalante National Monument by Mark Miller. using a rangeland health assessment over a 3-year period to do extensive monitoring there. And he does relate it then to changes in vegetation composition. And then here's a set of discussion questions, and we hope that those will be used in group discussion. And then here's an activity. We're trying to get the students out into the field, and they're actually going to select a site, find the ecological site description, do the rangeland health assessment, and then relate it to invasion and restoration. And then we have links then where they can go for additional resources. In this case, the NRCS site for ecological site descriptions. There's a great BLM rangeland health training video that's been produced. And then they can also download interpreting indicators of rangeland health as a PDF to help them along. And literature cited is in there, and further readings are also associated with it. And here's an example slide of the PowerPoint presentation that the teacher can take and modify however they want to. And then here is the high school curriculum. It's much more basic. And as you'll see here, the first module just is about rangeland ecology to provide background. Plants and systematics in terms of ID and ecology. And then what is the scientific method all about? What is experimental design? And then they get into the steps of the EBIPM model. This was developed by Jason Tuckness, a high school science teacher. And it meets core standards for high school science. Otherwise, it would not be adopted. Okay, so what are the impacts of outreach? 7 universities have indicated that they're adopting portions of EBIPM in their curriculum. There have been 235 participants in the field school over the last 3 years. And when we do surveys of those participants, 70% indicate that they're using some kind of the EBIPM practices. About 4,700 user guides have been distributed. 1,300 DVDs have been distributed. And the website gets about 350 hits per month, inquiries about the program. And then I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm not doing this by myself. Hallie Karchner is my graduate student, developing the manager and the university student curricula. Brenda and Ryan play a major role in developing the outreach education products. And then Jason Tuckness, again, is the one who developed the high school curriculum. So that's all I have.